Hi, I'm Heather Christensen here with Kiara Bowden, and we are turning it up. We're about giving you tips and ideas and tools to live extraordinary lives, and we are sharing our journeys with you. We hope that you guys will share your journeys with us. Last time, we talked about how if you knew who you were spiritually, you wouldn't give up. You wouldn't give up on your heart's desires that you want to manifest. And today's video is going to be the first of a series about the power of emotions. And those emotions can they can either attract light and or they can attract darkness. And so what we would like to bring out is, are you being intentional about your emotions, about choosing your emotions?
This actually reminds me of when I was a little girl and I would have the worst nightmares. And so I would run into your room every night and I would just be so scared. And I thought you could save me.
It's true, you would. And the first couple of nights, I do remember I felt so bad for you because you'd come into my room with those big crocodile tears and those great big eyes. You guys can only imagine that, her pretty big eye. My heart would just drop. And then it was like the second night that you came in, and then it was the third night, and then it was the fourth night. And it kept going. And I could see
No.
it wasn't gonna stop.
No, that's when you told me that I had power over the dreams and I was able to actually change them. And I was like, what? Like I thought dreams just happened to me. And so you compared our dreams to like a play on a stage and said that I could decide, the what the characters in my dream did and that I could change my dream around and make them happier. So like one of my dreams was I remember this one because I had it so many times. We used to live in an apartment and for some reason our apartment just started filling up with water and it became like the ocean and our whole apartment was filled up with water and I was like swimming around and we could breathe underwater. And then all of a sudden, this giant great white shark would come into the apartment and start chasing me.
That's
And
horrible.
I know it used to scare me so bad. And I remember when you told me that, I remember the first night that I had that dream again, and I was able to make the shark turn into like a funny shark. So I put like sunglasses on it and like a red nose. And it was really just trying to tell me some jokes. So once it caught me, it was like, "Hey, I just wanted to tell you some funny jokes." And then I started having that dream over and over again. I don't know what happened because I feel like I haven't done that in a long time, but I haven't really tried. I haven't had nightmares like I used to have all the time.
Well, I think also you're just so tired
Uh,
because you two little kids that keep you going.
I barely dream anymore because I'm so exhausted.
You know, that trick right there that I talked to you, I think that was inspired, but my dad actually, I think it was my dad that told me, and it may have been my mom, but I just remember when I would wake up with nightmares, my mom would fix me warm milk and honey and sit me on her lap and have me talk about
You did do that for me maybe like once, one or two times, but you
yeah,
are not quite as like nurturing
patient
as your
my
mom.
mom.
There's a reason your mom had 8 kids and you only had 2.
Well, sometimes you just got to do what you can do and stay sane how you can stay sane.
You're still a nurturing mom, just not in that way.
Well, I think but I do think it was my dad that talked about how you can have your thoughts have a lot of power. You have power over your thoughts and your emotions, and that I could choose to think one thing over another. And he was the one that got me into reading a lot of self-help books. And it was at a young age that I began to learn that I influence how I felt by the thoughts that I let play out on my stage in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think our society talks a whole lot about how our emotions and feelings are a result of our thoughts. It seems more like people focus on, that we can't do anything about how we feel. That's just how it is, and we have to accept that, and then figure out a way to move on and heal from it. So a lot of people just think that they are their emotions.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And what's interesting is that brings up the term toxic positivity to me. We recently created a short video about that on this channel, but I was actually with a client talking with her about how to change her thoughts to positive when she would come into an event. And then she asked me a serious question, and I hadn't thought too much about it until she asked. She says, "But how do I keep from practicing toxic positivity? Because that is a thing." And at first I was like, it took me back because I was like, a toxic positivity. I mean, toxic positivity. And I had to look that up. I talked to you about it, didn't I, Kiara? And you're like, well, one thing is that it it prevents people, or it's more of an awareness to show compassion. And so I thought, well, I'm going to go ahead and look this exact definition up, so that I could better understand how to talk with people about it. And Psychology Today defines toxic positivity as it's the act of avoiding, suppressing, or rejecting negative emotions or experiences. This may take the form of denying your own emotions or someone else denying your emotions, insisting on positive thinking instead. So,
Yeah.
sorry.
I mean, the danger is that we refuse to recognize our emotions, and it can lead to lack of compassion for yourself and for others. That's it. I feel like it came in like a positive, that term was created in a positive way to show, awareness that people are real and that they have feelings, and it's okay to feel sad sometimes. But it became this like fear-mongering term where now people are scared to be like, it's gonna be okay.
Right? Yeah. And it's good to recognize our emotions, like what you were saying, because our emotions actually need to be recognized because our spirit wants to be validated for what we're feeling.
Yeah.
And and there is a danger of actually not showing people compassion and forcing them to trap those emotions, because that's what we do, is we trap those negative vibrations um when we don't recognize and we don't give that emotion that moment of glory.
Yeah.
But like what you said, it concerns me that there's so much focus on the term, because placing that toxic term before positivity, it marks the word as a bad thing. It marks positivity as a bad thing. So it's bad to be positive. But I think that we both agree that the focus ought to change.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this. I was talking about having compassion for ourselves and for people, and we thought it'd be good then to replace it with compassionate positivity instead, although it's not as like easy to say. But then we create what we focus on. And so we are compassionate to those people who need it at that time, but then we're able to come back and view their emotions in a more positive light and help them figure out how to get through those emotions as well. So if we focus on the word toxic, then positivity becomes the villain. But if we focus on the word compassionate, we're focused on the preferred action, and positivity doesn't become the villain, because positivity is not the villain here. It's how it's executed.
And I think that I think that villainizing is the correct term for what toxic does, coming before positivity.
Yeah.
And when I first heard the word, I was suddenly afraid to reach out to people. It's like fear of sounding judgmental or putting people in a bad place, because all of a sudden this is a thing and it's a huge thing. Um, but I thought, oh my gosh, if I'm excited about life and I try to help people become excited about their life, then I become the bad guy, right? And you know how society can trend to that kind of behavior.
Yes.
So I think the term does the opposite actually of what it's supposed to do, toxic positivity. I think it keeps people in dark places and prevents them from seeing that there's hope and light in dark places. On the other hand, as soon as I understood the intention behind the term, like what you said, it came from a good place. I thought, oh, geez, why didn't they just tell us about compassionate positivity instead of saying toxic positivity?
I think it's a trend to focus on villainizing a lot of things nowadays that don't really need to be. Um, so everyone, let's put the word out and switch the focus to compassionate positivity instead of toxic positivity. When you get into a situation that sends you into a tailspin of emotions, it's good to recognize what you're feeling, and you should do that. It's good to do that so we don't trap the emotions. And depending on the severity of the event you are going through, it may take a lot of time. But allow yourself or the other person you are with to feel those emotions and talk about them. But then there comes a time when focusing on your negative emotions becomes non-productive. So it gets to the point where that your emotions are controlling the energy of yourself and those around you, and that can become toxic. It's like I've been in a bad mood before, and it's like it's like when you're in the bad mood, then everyone else has to be in that bad mood and like match your energy. Otherwise, you get really upset about it. It's yeah. Yes, we all know that I have done this before.
Well, I think we all have, but I was just laughing because we have had a recent event of that.
I'm human, surprise. But like if you're really thinking about it in the moment, it never feels good. You really don't want to be like that, but it's almost like you're stuck. You don't know how to fix it. And so you just, this is the option, and I'm gonna make everybody else choose this option with me.
Oh, it's true. It can get that way. And we all have been with people that have been that way where they just don't want to be helped and don't want to be fixed and they just don't want to move on.
Yes.
And so I think though, when people are in that place, then we probably just need to allow them that because that's what they feel like they need to be in and just step back away because like we talked about, it can be toxic for you when
Yeah.
it just gets to that point.
I almost think that toxic positivity was created by someone who was stuck in that spiral. You know what I mean?
It
That
could be.
term. Because
Yeah.
I know when I've been in like a spiral like that and somebody tries to come at me with positivity, I get really, really frustrated. I get really upset. So it wouldn't surprise me if someone made that term while they were in their own spiral themselves. I didn't
Yeah.
really get through.
Well, and it brings up a good point. I remember when my brother lost the love of his life, and my parents had reached out to me to ask if I could help him through this time. And so he was willing because he loved my parents. And, you know, I'm his sister, so it's okay. But I did help him with releasing those emotions. But then he did ask an important question. He said, well, what if I don't want to feel better about this? And that's what you were talking about, Kiara. He needed to mourn. He just needed to mourn. He needed time to get through it. Now, did clearing out his heart wall help? Yeah, it did. And so that he was able to at least get up and move on from day to day while he was going through the process of mourning. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
We're all different. We all do it our own way, but I think our point is that there are ways to get through it when we feel
Yeah.
like it's not a way out.
There is, and I think that that's why we teach the principles that we do. Everyone should guess what I'm going to say now, right? You meditate and connect to your spirit. You look inside of you for that light that tells you all of the answers, right? For the situation you're in. I know sometimes you don't feel like, getting into a meditation, but I guess sometimes it's an awareness. And if that person isn't ready to get into that meditation, then give them more time because eventually they'll probably want to come out of it. But the meditation really helps. So I have had some really difficult, dark moments myself. And there will be those times that I connect to my heart or spirit. And I'm told, just be kind to yourself today and let go of what's holding you down. And it's amazing what a kind and validating word from your spirit does for your attitude. So I would just say for people who are really going through difficult times, just try to breathe in and connect to your heart through a meditation because your spirit's going to be kind to you. It knows exactly what you're going through. And your spirit is connected to God. And we know God as a very loving, loving Father.
Yeah.
And it actually puts you in a mood when you feel that validation where you think it's going to be okay, right?
Mhm.
Because someone understands what you're going through. And that's what we need to help each other with is, okay, yeah, you're right. You should feel that way and validate those emotions. And so it's okay. Sometimes you just need to do that. And then it gets to the point where your spirit says, okay, Heather, it's time to get up or whatever your name is. It's time to get up and get back on the horse that you fell off.
Yeah. It sounds like our last video, where we said if you knew who you were, you wouldn't give up. And
Right.
You know, we need to remember that adversity is the universe's way of bringing us back into alignment with our spirit so that we can learn and grow and create beautiful things. But going back to the idea that our emotions have power because they influence energy or they vibrate, it really does become important to recognize that what you are feeling, oh goodness. It really does become important to recognize what you are feeling and then realize that you can choose to change. We talked about how everything is neutral until you give it meaning. This is like actually a really deep quote that is hard to wrap your head around sometimes. But sometimes life can just be hard, and other times we can be the ones who are making it harder than it needs to be based upon our choice of the meaning we apply to certain events or situations. And more often than not, people's words or people's facial expressions that come to us.
Seriously, I mean, how many times do we look at people's expressions and then we're like, why are you mad at me? We jump to a conclusion. I mean, someone may just be having a difficult day and look at you with the expression that seems to tell you that they just don't like you or any other negative thought about you, and suddenly you have allowed yourself, because you put that meaning to that, you're vibrating with anxiety that maybe you did something wrong, or if it's a stranger, you immediately think that they just don't like you.
Yeah, yeah, actually reminded me of an experience I had today. So we went to church today, and because the previous congregation we were in was really small and kind of struggling to have people, we got combined with another congregation, and now our congregation is absolutely huge. And there is honestly not even enough space for everybody to fit in like our main chapel area. And so you just kind of feel like a little fish in the sea of people. And when I came in today, even though I was a half hour late to church, I was really upset that there was not a place for me to sit in the chapel. And I was just like, "Are you kidding me? Like, this is the worst thing ever. Like, why did they think this was a good idea?" Then I went to our second hour of meetings where we just met with all of the women who are 18 and older, and there was no space there. We were packed into a tiny room, like a bunch of sardines. There was like 70 people, and there probably should only be like 40 people in that room. And I just had a really rotten attitude about it, honestly. But then a lady made a comment about this lesson that a lady was giving, and she was talking about how, we could all leave here today and be like, this is a terrible experience. Everybody here is mean. Nobody knows my name. I'm gonna transfer, my records to another congregation or whatever. And while she was saying that, I was like, that is me. And she's like, but instead, why don't we look outside of ourselves, and why don't we compliment the person who gave a lesson or say something nice to somebody and try to like exert ourselves outside of ourselves before we have like this crazy bad attitude. And that was the reality check that I needed. I was like, okay, it is my decision to have a bad experience. And that's what I was doing. And I was choosing to be like, nobody cares about me because I am one of the hundreds of people here, when in fact nobody is thinking that about me. I am the only one thinking that about myself, and I had the ability to change that. So I was able to change it right at the very end, and then I actually had a nice conversation with somebody, and I was like, yeah, we're in control. Everything is neutral until you give it meaning.
That's an excellent, excellent example, Kiara.
Yeah, that lady, I think she could read my mind at that moment. Felt very attacked.
She was connected to her heart, which is connected to everything.
Exactly. So let's remind everyone why it's important to change things around. One, the law of attraction. The vibrations we send out, they come back to us and many times make our days worse. But we have the power to choose to bring light into our lives versus darkness, just like the experience I had at church today. Two, when we vibrate, we influence the feelings of those around us. And we have to remember that as well. We're not just choosing for ourselves to have a bad day. We can also make other people around us have a bad day too. I am sure my facial expressions were showing that I was having a bad day while I was at church, which probably made nobody want to talk to me because I had my RBF on.
You want to define what RBF is?
It's a resting bad face.
That's the nice term for it.
So my resting bad face was probably on, which is probably why no one was talking to me. And then as soon as I changed my attitude around, I was able to talk to somebody and we had a good conversation. So, but I may have made someone feel terrible because maybe I accidentally gave them my RBF without realizing that I did, because they felt those vibrations from me. And then 3, when we vibrate negative emotions, we get stuck in our minds versus, we get stuck in our mind brain versus our spirit or heart brain. And that's where I was today too. I was just thinking about myself, and that's what your brain, your mind brain would do. That's not what your spirit or your heart would do. So we can't think creatively, and then we have difficulty solving problems. Our relationships will suffer when we're in that mindset. Then 4, when we vibrate negative emotions, many times we aren't focused on our manifestations and we are deceived, distracted, and discouraged. Wow,
The 3 Ds.
yes, the 3 Ds. My example again at church today, this is exactly, I was deceived into thinking that everyone didn't like me or hated me. I was distracted because all I was thinking about was how horrible and uncomfortable I felt. And I was discouraged because I felt that way and I didn't know how to change it. And then 5, probably the most important thing, is something that we have briefly mentioned before, but haven't gone super into depth on, is that we are allowing dark power to influence our thoughts and our lives when we
Yeah,
do stuff like this.
yeah, I'm really, really glad that you brought that up, Kiara. It's true. Like in the of work that we do, we've been witnessing that spirits can read and manipulate vibrations. They aren't able to read minds, but they are able to read vibrations. In fact, they're able to attach themselves to negative vibrations and make them much, much worse by throwing more negative vibrations at us. Like, have you ever noticed that when you're in a negative state that you seem to go into a downward spiral? Like when you were at church today, and thoughts and images inside your head suddenly get really, really bad and continue to plummet like an airplane out of control, like you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Usually those dark spirits are jumping on the vibrations for a ride. They love misery and they'll continue to pour those negative thoughts at you until that is all you can see and focus on. Because when you're in negative emotions, that's when you're in your headspace and you make bad choices, only bringing you into darker places. And then those spirits know that they're succeeding. So they're just going to keep going at it. But on the flip side of that, when you finally break out of that negativity, you look at your situation and think, I don't know why I was feeling the way I was. It definitely wasn't as bad as I made it out to be. You think that's right?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, this was literally exactly what happened to me all day today. um, bottom line is emotions and vibrations are real. And anyone who knows science knows that. But also, if you're just a human, you should be able to put it together that this stuff is real and this is how the world works and it's how it functions, unfortunately. No, actually, it's fortunately because you can control it. So you bring good things to you. Everything is influenced by intention and vibration. So if there are dark spirits influencing your negative thoughts, then you must remember that there is a law of opposites. For every dark, there is a light. So when you are functioning in light emotions and vibrations, that is when God's light can encourage and empower and promote creativity because you are connected to the highest vibrations and knowledge. Spirits of light do not jump on and force thoughts. However, instead, they understand that one of the foundational principles that God values is freedom of choice. So, but they will be there in your darkest hours, and they will be there to uplift and encourage and invite the light in. Believe us, they are there reaching out, protecting, uplifting, and endeavoring to encourage, but you are the one that is choosing to allow or to deny. You are the one that needs to cultivate that light in order for it to work for you.
I do remember in one of my darkest hours, I remember hearing, and it was when I was just, it was before I knew about what we do, releasing emotions, but I was vibrating so desperately and so badly. I was in prayer and I was just sobbing and I couldn't get out of it. And I remembered having the thought in my head, Heather, why have you gone down the rabbit hole? And it wasn't me that was saying it. And I knew that it wasn't me saying it to me. It was, Heather, where have you gone? It was this kind, concerned, sweet, gentle voice. And I do look back on that and I'm like, I know I know I wasn't alone at that time. Sorry, it was a really dark time for me. So I've been there and Kiara has been there, and that's why we do what we do, you guys. We know the wonderful relief that comes when you need some outside help. That's usually when we have to reach out to let people help us out of the dark places and help them to feel hope again. You know, Kiara and I, we understand how vibrations work, and we know how to release those negative trapped emotions that can get rid and those so that we know how to release the negative trapped emotions and vibrations, but we also know how to detach the dark entities or the spirits that attach onto those vibrations, that can keep you in very dark spaces. You don't need to stay there. There's hope. Don't worry if you don't live in the vicinity. We do it online all the time. In fact, most of our sessions are online. It's just as effective as it is in person.
Yeah. So there you have it. Emotions are real. Our emotions are real. They impact us and they impact others around us and the rest of the world. Our emotions can promote light and joy or darkness and chaos. You decide. It's all really mind-boggling.
It is, but it's great to have the power behind us though, to know the knowledge. Knowledge is power. And so, yay. All right, we will talk to you guys next time.
Yeah,
Thanks so much for
thank
being with
you. Okay, bye.